Çok değerli konuklar, PMI Türkiye'nin iletişim direktörü olarak ben de sizlere hoş geldiniz diyorum. Bugün burada bulunmanız çok önemli çünkü bizler kalkınmada proje yönetiminin öneminin farkındayız. Fakat sizler gibi sosyoekonomik etki gücü yüksek kişilerin bir arada bulunması ve bu etkinliği desteklemesi proje yönetimi bilincinin yaygınlaşması için çok önemli. Teşekkür ediyorum hepinize. Şu anki konuğumuz PMI Global'in Board of Directors üyeleri arasında olan Chair of Strategy Committee, Türkçe-İngilizce karıştı, özür diliyorum. Strateji Geliştirme Gözetim Komitesi Başkanı Sayın Deena Gordon Parla. Kendisi bilişim teknolojileri başta olmak üzere birçok alanda strateji geliştirme, iş dönüşümü, proje, program ve portfolyo yönetimleri alanında liderlik uygulamaları yapmış. Dünya çapında tanınan bir insan. Kendisini davet ediyorum. Please join me welcoming her. Kendisinin konuşması İngilizce olacak. Türkçe tercümesini dinlemek için dışarıdan kulaklık almanız gerekiyor. Bunu hatırlatmak istedim. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Good morning. Good morning. There we go. Günaydın. Hoş geldiniz. How's my Turkish? It's pretty good. As you know, I'm here representing PMI Global. You've learned a lot about what PMI is doing here locally in Turkey, all across Turkey actually, not just here in Ankara. But we also have an active group of 8,000 volunteer leaders, very similar to the ones you're meeting here today. So we thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, what our volunteer leaders do locally, globally, and also our sponsors. Without our sponsors, both here in Turkey and around the world, we would not be as effective in sharing the message, many of which you've heard from our speakers earlier, about the value of what project management can do, how it helps society, how it helps organizations, both commercial or private as well as public. So thank you again for that. Since I'm the only speaker in English today, unfortunately after 15 years my Turkish still isn't strong enough to be able to deliver this to you in Turkish. Is there anybody that wants to get a headset? Okay, just give you that chance because I appreciate it myself. I also wanted to note a little bit about our founding and the fact that we are a global community. Ismail kindly mentioned Jim Snyder. I've had the privilege to talk to him many times because as a global board of directors, there are 15 of us. We need to also think about our roots. So as we look forward and do our futuristic thinking about where our profession will take us, not just tomorrow, 3 years, 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we need to be true to who we are. And one of the messages that Jim Snyder gives us regularly is, we started PMI because we believed in our profession. We knew about the value. But back in 1969, we couldn't find each other. We were looking for a community, a way for us all to come together. And in that coming together, we not only developed friendships, and I call it my PMI family. Wherever I go in the world, there's always someone from my PMI family waiting for me. But also, professionally speaking, it has helped me develop as a leader and as a professional. You know, when you're looking to solve a particular challenge in your day-to-day work, when you know you can email or pick up the phone and contact someone that you've met at a PMI event, I find that incredibly exciting. And I think that ties to our topic today, which is about knowledge transfer. We transfer information and knowledge through people. through which often come, right, we get together through communities. And as I get into more detail about it, I had one more thing I wanted to mention. PMI Global has a virtual community to share knowledge called projectmanagement.com. And I was curious, how many here in the room have seen the site or heard of it? Great, almost half of us. Wonderful. Well, I'm more than happy to hear your comments about it, your feedback, because face-to-face opportunities to be together as a community in person like we are today is critical, as well as being able to access knowledge and information to help us in our professional lives virtually is also key. All right, great. Well, PMI Global invests millions of dollars a year in research to help promote the profession. One aspect of this research is around thought leadership. For me, earlier in my career, I'd like to pretend that I've only been a project manager for 5 years. I want to be young again. But my career spans almost 30 years now. And I remember back in the early days, you would try to speak to your boss or to someone in the organization about why it's important for us to think about the work we're doing as a project. But what would happen is there wasn't enough thought leadership about why and what the value is. So PMI, when you go out into the website, pmi.org, you will see quite a few areas of thought leadership around strategic initiative management, which deals with a lot with PMOs and portfolio management. Knowledge transfer is one, and it goes on and on and on. Communications, complexity. The world in which we operate and deliver projects gets even more complex day by day. So there's a lot there. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you one of our most recent publications, which is on knowledge transfer. So the research that PMI has done, and again, I want to emphasize, it's always global. Our standards, our practices, our research goes beyond one country, goes beyond North America, because a lot of people doubt that at times. It's global. And what we have here is clear evidence that 35% of the organizations that use knowledge transfer, that share good practices amongst each other, as individuals, as teams, across organizations, have better project outcomes. What do we mean by project outcomes? I'll get into that later, but that's very similar to what our previous speakers have mentioned. More efficiency, better effectiveness, innovation, that's another one. We'll talk a little bit about why knowledge transfer ties to project management so easily. Everything from our processes, for example, when we plan and document what we're going to do and communicate it, and certainly when we're at the beginning of a project, and certainly at the end when we're closing and we capture lessons learned. These all are tied, I think of it as it's instinctive to us as project managers. We do this naturally. And as a result, we share the information from our current project, it carries over to the next one, and they build from there. What we'll see in the NASA case example that I'll give in a few minutes is that information is out there. We, as individuals, I think naturally like to share and help each other. But when a project or program becomes very complex and the information needs to really grow and be more in terms of the context, and how it would impact across a very complex environment. Maybe, for example, we have a university doing research in one part of the space shuttle. Then you have a contractor developing a certain piece of the shuttle, and it goes on and on and on. All of the interlinkages and interrelationships between this extended team to deliver that product, in this case a space shuttle, for example, is very complex, and the information needs to flow, and we need to share those practices. And when it doesn't grow across a project boundary or across an organization or across a team, we miss those key connections in terms of what that information means. And as you'll see in the case example, unfortunately, NASA faced a series of disasters where lives were lost. All right. We talked about doing projects better, about delivering results better. Again, we have more facts. For organizations that use knowledge transfer, that have mechanisms for sharing best practices, don't reinvent the wheel. I think we're all familiar with that saying. We can estimate, we can schedule with a higher level of expertise, or accuracy, excuse me. Why? Because we're building off of all of our knowledge, of people who've already done this before. We have a robust repository of experience and information to draw from. So what you'll see is these organizations are 75% more effective in terms of delivering their projects on time, within budget, and I think even more importantly, they're meeting the original intent of the project. How many of us have forgotten to connect with a stakeholder? Or as we've gone through a very complex project, have you discovered that your project was out of alignment with what the business wanted to achieve? See, in the end, our reasons for delivering projects and programs is for the purpose of helping organizations innovate, reposition themselves in the market, help an industry grow, and that's where the public-private partnership is key. I had talked about innovation. This is a picture of the first steam-driven car. I'm so glad we don't have to drive these today. It does not look very comfortable. Next to it is a prototype of a driverless car. And it turns out that the first original working model of a car, it took over 150 years to get from this point to when Henry Ford started producing the Model T, and the car became available to everyone. Why? Because the inventions, the innovations that were being made couldn't be shared at that time. Nowadays, knowledge and information is available everywhere. We have not only the typical car producers working on a driverless car, but even Google and other software companies are doing that as well. And why is the concept of a driverless car progressing so quickly? It's because the information and the knowledge that each of the both private as well as public players in this space are able to share very, very quickly. It's available, and there's also a culture that's changed where the information is understood that this is part of how we should operate. Keeping information to yourself does not provide value ever. So this is an example of how knowledge sharing is innovating and driving an industry forward. Okay. In a nutshell for NASA, I think everybody can see these, so I don't need to read these slides to you. For me, it was very compelling to see that the NASA Challenger and the Columbia Shuttle disasters were not the result of a technical problem. That wasn't the root cause. The root cause was the way information was flowing, the way it was being shared between both individuals, across the team. You know, is there really trust in the team? So that if somebody had any doubts about the safety or the technical accuracy of a part of that shuttle, that their voice could be heard. Unfortunately, what happened is their voice wasn't heard. The information was not flowing. And it didn't just happen once. It happened again 17 years later. So what we've learned is that project and program management practices, mature ones, can go a long way towards helping knowledge transfer, to being more effective, to delivering your objectives on time, within budget, and having real impact. But until, and through you can see the use of a PMO, but until you really look at knowledge more systematically, until you formalize that process of gathering it, of culling it, of sharing it across not only your own organization, but across any stakeholder that you're teaming with or even the industry, you will not really have the kind of success that's needed to prevent these kinds of disasters. So this is NASA's lesson learned. One of the reasons why I'm focusing, by the way, on NASA, Boeing, Microsoft, and other organizations is that they are part of PMI's Global Executive Council. So we work with these organizations to learn from them and also to understand what they need from our profession. I mean, I could talk for hours. I have lots and lots of case examples, but this will be something for later. I see that I have 3 minutes. So I'm going to go through here. I thought I was going to have 30 minutes. My apologies. All right. I think again, we talk about how knowledge is not just information. It needs to convey the context, the why, that impact of what it really means when others get it. And these are elements of how you can become a learning organization. There is a life cycle, very similar to the project management life cycle. There is also a knowledge management life cycle, and the thought leadership piece that's available on the PMI.org website will go through this in more detail. What I want to point out is that in order to implement knowledge transfer and grow it and mature it to a strong knowledge management practice within your organization, you always have to look at the people, the culture, and the leadership within your organization. So we all know that as individuals, one of the reasons why we're here is we all need training, we need to grow, we need to always be on a journey of learning and sharing knowledge. But if the organization or the project team that we work within does not have a culture of encouraging and fostering that sharing, then there's going to be a barrier, and we're not going to be as successful with the knowledge transfer. And then, of course, with the leadership side, we need a champion for it. At NASA, the chief scientist or the chief engineer is now the chief knowledge officer, all the way from the top. So it shows that it drives the culture down. And that's also one of the reasons why an ePMO can be very, very effective. A project management office is a natural mechanism for I told them I wanted to stay on time, so they're reminding me. Thank you very much. A PMO is a very natural mechanism for promoting standards, training, sharing information across the organization, because each project and program that's happening across different functions within an organization is going to have different insights. And how you bring the insights from many different parts of the organization together is where the challenge is. So if you're in a PMO or may grow into an ePMO, you have an opportunity here not only to mature project and program management practices for your organization, but at the same time to really enable your organization to be a knowledge leader. I'm clicking this at the wrong place. There we go. We as project managers are an important part of that process. I had mentioned the individual. Here's some statistics behind what I was saying. In the research that was done, 90% of the effective organizations that utilize knowledge transfer had a PMO in place. That's very, very compelling. As I said, there are steps, and behind each of these steps was another slide. I had removed it from this deck that gives you an insight in how to put a program in play. Okay. And this is an example of, again, I mentioned the Chief Knowledge Officer at NASA, the former Chief Engineer. This is a visual of how they incorporate the importance of people in the process of knowledge. Let me get a picture there, get my finger out of there. Also the cultural dimension, and of course the processes and systems. All three have to work together and play a part in that. And I wanted to close with a statement from the Chief Technology Officer at Microsoft, again a Global Executive Council member for PMI, and of course one of our main sponsor at this event. Knowledge is what is a critical part of everything that we do, especially if you're a services organization. If you're a product-driven organization and you want to innovate, knowledge will help you do that as well. It's key. It's just part of our DNA. And again, this is a copy of a visual of the knowledge, the thought leadership piece from PMI. And as I wrap up in my 0 seconds left, it just went to 0, I really want to encourage everyone to find me during the break or to email me or contact me through LinkedIn so that we can continue this conversation. I feel like we just touched the surface of it, and there's going to be a lot more learning that happens this entire day. I want to encourage you to get the most out of every session, to engage as you already are. And thank you again for this time, and thank you again from PMI Global for all the incredible work and professionalism here on display at this event. Have a great day.
Konuşmacımız adına Bir ağaç sizden, bir orman bizden kampanyasına katıldık. Onun sertifikasını ve aynı zamanda biraz önce sunumumda bahsettiğim kitaplardan biri olan Proje Yönetiminde Analitik Yaklaşımlar kitabını takdim ediyorum.